My name is Becky Shearman. I'm a biology professor at Framingham State University, and I've been asked to talk a little bit about my experiences in the classroom and with assignment design. So, it's a little bit of background. For the last couple of years, I've been working quite a bit on helping our institution build assessment plans for our gen ed program and departments' assessment plans as well. And so in doing that, I've become very familiar with the AAC&U rubrics, as well as sort of the rubrics that we've actually been building based off the AAC&U rubrics to use here at Framingham. And it's been through that experience that I've really started to take a closer look at what I teach in my classes and how I teach in my classes, and to really try to stop thinking about what it is I'm teaching and try to think about what it is my students are learning or not learning. And, when I think about what do I really want my students to walk away with, it always comes down to I want them to be able to think critically, and I want them to be able to write, in addition to learning the biology that they need to know. So how can I bring those two fundamental skill sets into the classroom in a better way? Because every semester I always seem to be a little disappointed that they're not writing or they're not thinking critically, at least not at the level I'd like to see. So every semester I always sort of throw in another assignment or a little something here, a little something there, where I'm hoping that we'll get one step closer to the writing skills and the critical thinking skills that I want to see. This semester I decided I was just going to completely pitch my course the way I've been teaching it and revamp it and really try to center it around critical thinking. This is a course in comparative vertebrate anatomy, which traditionally is very heavy on content, lots of terminology, lots of memorization. And so it was definitely a challenge to think about how to implement critical thinking in that kind of course where traditionally we just worry about have the students learned all those parts of all those different animals. And so the way I've done this, because I had to be very explicit about it. Everything I did had to be very intentional because it was hard to let go of some of that content and hard to let go of I just need to make sure they're memorizing, because that's what I'm used to, that's the tradition. But at the same time, I know that unless you're studying it year after year, you're not gonna remember all those terms that you've memorized. So it was definitely worth it to try to break away from that framework and focus on the critical thinking. So I did that by really starting with one assignment as sort of the cornerstone for the course. There's always that big paper that the student needs to write. And so I started with that, and it was a paper where they needed to, they would be given a topic, a hypothesis that's currently being researched amongst scientists in the field, and they really needed to dig into that literature and give me an analysis on sort of the status of that question that's being researched in the field now, and give me their critical opinion of where things stand. And so as I wrote that assignment, I spent much more time thinking about how to prompt them to really write the sort of assignment that, or write the paper that I was looking for. And I realized that I really did need to give them much more guidance than just give me a paper where you critique this particular field. They needed, baby steps. I needed to really lay it out. So the assignment prompt actually got much longer than it ever had been before. And that's where I started. And once I spent a lot of time on that prompt, and I developed a grading rubric for it that was based off of the critical thinking rubrics like the AAC&U rubric, just to guide me through making sure that the assignment was actually addressing the aspects of critical thinking that I really wanted the students to engage with. And then after I had that assignment, I then took another step back and tried to figure out, okay, over the course of the semester, what additional assignments am I going to need to make sure that they're actually capable of accomplishing this big paper successfully. And it was a challenging exercise for me, and largely because I realized that I think I overlooked a lot of what they needed to know to really do this assignment successfully. So we're spending a lot more time in class talking about journal articles and papers, and how to read them, spending a lot more time talking about how to read something critically before we even start worrying about writing something critically or thinking critically. Just how do you read a paper? So I've built in several assignments that I'm hoping by the end of the semester will lead to student work that's a little bit more more solid, to demonstrating their critical thinking skills. The other thing that I've done is I've just overall tried to make critical thinking a much more obvious or overt thing that we're doing in class. So I talk about critical thinking a lot more. It's moved up in the list of objectives in my syllabus. It's bold, and we talk like these are critical thinking skills that you're developing. When we're doing assignments in class or projects in class, we're using those words so they see that they're actually doing the critical thinking. And then the other thing that I'm adjusting to at this point is letting go of the lecture-based classroom, where I'm giving small lectures. I'm expecting them to get a lot of the content stuff outside of class, and if they don't get all of the content over the course of 15 weeks, that's okay, as long as they've got the skill set to approach that content. If they've got the skills so that when they are given it, they know how to really dive in and critique it, then I think I've done an okay job, and it's okay that I've let go of that content. It's still kind of early in the semester, so some days work better than other days. But one of the things that I'm seeing that I am encouraged by is for a course where terminology is so essential, even though I've really backed off on any kind of exams where they're giving me definitions and that kind of stuff, I'm hearing them use that vocabulary as they're doing stuff in the classroom. So they're learning words that I don't even think they realize they're learning. And they're pronouncing really complicated words that in past semesters, they may be able to get the word down on an exam, but you ask them to say it, and they, it's lots of syllables, it's really complicated, it doesn't sound anything like it looks. But these students in this semester are actually using them, so they can, I think they've actually incorporated into their vocabulary. So so far I think it's working, and I don't know, we'll see how it goes. I'm sure next year I'll have a whole bunch of other ideas that I'll incorporate to make adjustments and improve, and so there you go.